So I was on Telegram the other day, and the person asked a very, peculiar question. How many DeFi projects? Now, the word DeFi again is misused in this context, because for me, those are games, experiments. None of this is DeFi, but for the sake of argument, let's keep going. So how many of these so-called projects have actually rugged and scammed people out of their money in 2021/2022? And the answer is too many. There's simply not a number that one can put on these scams, because no one is counting unless someone is. And every now and then, means every day or two, you hear something. You hear someone losing money because some developer made some project and took the money out and left. I actually made a video on YieldRobot, I think a few weeks back, where I laid out what they do and all the red flags around them and how you should tread lightly. Now, all of these, if I ever were to make a video about them, I talk about them in a very objective way. So think of it of going to the casino, playing Russian roulette, you put some money in, you're either gonna win or you're gonna lose it all. That's what it is, because even though they had an audit report, no backdoors whatsoever, but remember, they could move funds around, and that's what they did. Now the owner, so-called owner, came on and said that a hacker found a loophole. Now I'm pulling the announcement on the screen. They found a loophole, they moved the funds. That was more than 72 hours ago, and he mentioned that in 48 hours, I'm responsible for your money, I'm gonna talk with the hacker, and I'm gonna basically give your obligations. Now, speaking of obligations, there are a total of 2.9 million active deposits. At 2%, that's about 58,000 per day that investors are so-called owed, correct? So what is he gonna do? Is he gonna give that 2.9 million back to people? I highly doubt that. And the so-called hacker thing, in my personal opinion, is also a cover-up, because let's be honest, what kind of loophole in a closed smart contract that wasn't picked out by audit can be found in that case? What, did they, I don't know, did they connect to some scammy website? Did they, I don't know, post the contract somewhere they shouldn't have? All of this is speculation, but I think the writing is on the wall. Now, this is what caused the depletion. One transfer of about 2.12 million bucks moved around, and I decided to dig deeper. I decided to see where those funds went and how are they distributed now, and what is the situation overall. Just a quick cut before I proceed to show you how the funds were being handled. I just want to pull out the latest message from the so-called owner, where after 48 hours, so he came back after more than that actually, and then now he's saying that unfortunately many attempts were made to contact the hacker, but he refused to give back at least 50% of the funds. The community is gonna be heard, they're gonna repel him, etc., etc., and he's in the process of raising funds to make it back to people. Now, this is by far one of the weirdest and most disturbing messages I've seen. First of all, he said that the conversation was deleted. Weren't you smart enough to take screenshots before all of this goes down? So as you go with the conversation, take screenshots. And how were you able to actually identify the said hacker? Like, how? Did he come out and say, hey, look, I hacked your protocol and I need a ransom to give it back? No, if that actually would have happened, you wouldn't have never known who that person was. So there was no communication whatsoever. It was just a ploy to buy back a bit of time, just to come out with a plan, to come out unscathed. And then raising funds, where are you gonna raise funds from? Who is gonna give you money to pay other people their money, and then you have obligations to settle anyways? This whole thing doesn't make sense. He's just around to, I don't know, to somehow prove that this isn't a scam or a RugPull. And look at those reactions to the messages. Those are fake reactions, because most probably he disabled all the negative ones, and him and his people are just spamming the chat with positive reactions just for others to see that, they are so-called good people. Okay, that out of the way. Let's move on to the funds now. Now, funny enough, if you go on the main website, you cannot access it, so the front end has been disabled. Now, of course, if there were any funds left, people could interact with the contract and claim what they're owed, but unfortunately, since they moved everything, none of this is possible anymore. So let's talk about the movement of these funds, right? So how can a so-called hacker do this, so to speak? Now, starting things off, I want to go to the initial source, which is the staking contract, right? So the staking contract has sent out about $2.12 million to one of their receiver wallets. So a random wallet has taken that money in and in turn has sent out those funds to another wallet. Now, surprisingly, it wasn't the exact amount that was moved over. It was about $2.134 million. So a bit more than what the original amount was sent in. So I assume that because I looked on chain to why the difference. So those added few thousand BUSD were actually coming from several sources. Now, you know, tracking these things is a bit of a hustle. So my basic assumption is that because, you know, in the audit report that I labeled in my previous video, they had, because it was a bit centralized, so they could, in theory, change the wallet that would receive the fees, and I assume they did. So they have a bit of excess that fees that was sent in, and at the end 2.134 was sent out to various sources. So these are the wallets. This is the list of the 6 wallets or the 5 wallets that you see in front of you, and the breakdown is as follows. So all of these had funds running in them, and some of them still have some funds sitting. So you have the first one with 85.8k, second one 165.6, the third one 95.6k, and we're gonna come back to this one because as you can see it's a bit highlighted. And then you have 155.9k in the fourth one, and the bulk, the majority of all of these funds went to actually be washed out in MEXC, about 1.6 million. So all of these funds went through several transfers. So in order not to cover all the small transfers that have happened, because they didn't just transfer 1.6 million, they did this by doing 200k here, 100k there, etc., and they ended up there. Now this is a very common practice with these scams, because at the end of the day you don't want any wallet to be associated with yourself. So what they try to do is that they try to take those funds, they leave some in some hot wallets on MetaMask or anywhere else for people, you know, if they didn't trace them, for people to forget, and then the bulk goes through an exchange that they try to cash out. And MEXC is very popular with this. So they're not gonna go with the top tier exchanges, they'd rather go with the small exchanges, because those are by nature a bit shady and they can do whatever they can at the end of the day, so far at least. Let's go back to the highlighted wallet. Now this one, even though it has, I think it has currently, or at least the movement of the funds is by far the second lowest, so we're talking about 95.6k, this one is actually linked to the last wallet that Real Life Fund, yes, Real Life Fund, another so-called slow rug, which I'm gonna cover in my next video, not this one. It's linked because when I covered Real Life Fund, their bot transfers that they were doing on a monthly or bi-monthly basis were ending up in that wallet, and that wallet has links to YieldRobot. What does that mean? Now, I'm not gonna confirm anything that there's any relations between the two, but there's a theory going around that there might be a team, a big team, that has been running these scams all along, and they're all tied to AI trading bots, 1 to 2% today, etc. And all of those rugs tie back to a singular team. Now, is this a conspiracy theory? I don't know. I need to dig further. We need to understand why this wallet has so much in it. Perhaps BSC hasn't flagged it as a sex wallet. It could be that. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not, because it's not flagged as such. Is this the endgame wallet that all of these so-called scams, pulling funds from under the investors and putting them there. Of course, that's not only the case because they're also sending money to other exchanges. Or is this also a hot wallet on an exchange that all of these scams are sending funds to so they can wash them out? Again, this is a theory, this is speculation from my part. I cannot confirm anything, but I'm going with my gut on this, that there's more to this than meets the eye. And I'm gonna take this a bit further in my real life fund video. So similar type of video, just different project and most probably different movements. And I hope you're gonna stick around and follow me on this journey as well, because I did this with stablefund and I'm gonna keep doing this as long as these projects pop out. So thank you for sticking around. I hope you haven't been burned too much. Please, I always say this, I always repeat myself when it comes to these things. Do not, and again, do not put more than your absolutely riskiest of risk capital into these things. Assume that you lost this money and play the game, you know? 1 out of 5, I think, comes out as a non-rug, but it gets depleted anyway. So the end game is known. The only difference is how much time will it take for these funds to disappear, either through malicious intents or just investors taking their money out. Have a good one. See you in the next one.